And now we will head over to our next presenter of the evening. Welcome to us, Anita. Hi, Anita.
Hello.
Hello, and warm welcome to Func Prog Sweden. You're coming with us from A- Aachen, I assume it's pronounced.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, exactly. I'm from yeah, west, most western part of Germany, like nearly the Netherlands.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah. Warm welcome, Anita, and kick it away with your presentation.
Yeah,
Yep.
looks like it's perfect. Yeah, then hello.
Hello.
Yeah, as I've said, I'm Anita. I want to share with you and talk that I've already held at the conference in May at the Elixir Conf in EU. And I want to talk to you about how we at my company started moving to Elixir and what obstacles we met and how to do this, yeah, without breaking everything. So we've already established Amanita. I work at Model Aachen, which is a company in Aachen, which is also where I live. Another part I'm really proud of is I'm co-founder of the Ladybugs, which is a meetup for women in software engineering. So kind of a passion project. Um, yeah, that's it about me. So for my agenda, first I want to introduce you to Model Aachen, like tell you what we do and how we do it, so you understand what I'm talking about. Then I want to talk about the definition of legacy code, um, show you how we got started with Elixir, which is called a walking skeleton, or building a walking skeleton. Then talk about our approach to moving legacy code to Elixir. So um, yeah, the example of a strangler pattern. And then I want to show you where we are now and our takeaways from our move so far. So first of all, who is Model Aachen? Uh, Here you can see my colleagues, or some of my colleagues. We're quite a lot bigger by now. We started back in 2009. I did joined the company in 2021, and we work in quality management basically. So we have a software that our customers buy and can use, and we also offer consulting services because just introducing the software without um, also doing some consulting doesn't change the approach in companies. So the consulting part is still pretty important. Currently, we are 50 plus employees. We are in a growth phase, so it's all from the business perspective. It's also interesting to see how it's going. Yeah, it's excited currently. So our software, which is what we're here to talk about. As I've said, we work in quality management. It's an interactive management system. So our goal is that everybody can change processes or can propose to change processes. So we get the documentation as close as possible to the real world. Um, and we also have functions or features for auditing. Uh, so like if you have ISOs, you have to confirm this or something. That's something we do as well. Our main focus is software as a service. So we have cloud first, but we also have some on-premise clients, and they're probably not going away. So, or it's a moving, slower moving part. So we also have to keep that in mind as well. Um, and so how do we work in our developer team? We basically, you can say we work with incremental steps all the way. So we do test-driven development, which means we are confident if we do changes, if we change stuff, that we don't break everything. Sometimes, of course, unexpected stuff happens, but that's also one of the main reasons for the later parts. We do CI/CD, so if we need like 30 minutes from code to client, at least to SaaS client. So if we break stuff, we can also fix stuff quite quickly. Then we work with domain-driven design. So we shape in contexts, and we work agile. The framework we use is called ShapeUp. The main thing you need to know for now is that we release to enterprise like every 2 months. And even if we deploy stuff to our customers without them knowing, like with feature toggles, we also remove them mainly every 2 months. So that's the main part. If you want to talk about ShapeUp, write me a message because I'm very passionate about that one too. But yeah, the main thing you have to know, incremental steps all the way. So this sounds fine. So why do we even want to move? Why do we want to change stuff? And what does old mean when I say turn old into new? And why Elixir? These are want to show you why. So back when I joined our tech stack, and at the beginning of 2022, or at the end of 2022, before we started with Elixir, our front end was Vue, so JS mainly. Our backend Foswiki and Perl, which is the old stuff, and our database is PostgreSQL, and still is. So the front end is okay, backend is database is okay, but the backend in between is slowly crumbling because Perl is quite an old language and doesn't have to be a bad thing, but in our case, this means that the documentation is often outdated. So if you Google something for Perl, you land on Stack Overflow with a topic that has been closed like 13 years ago. And it's really hard to find newer stuff. The other thing is it's not actively maintained or not actively developed further, so it has missing technologies. So for example, Perl does not offer what they're called web stacks. So which were introduced, WebSockets, sorry, it doesn't offer WebSockets, which were introduced in 2011, and we needed them for a feature, but we couldn't get them. So that's not ideal. This is one part. Why does this happen? Well, languages, or in general, software ages, code ages. I mean, we mostly know this. What I think is interesting that you can see kind of loops, like UI is like every 3 to 5 years you have something new. Logic is every 5 to 10 years, so backend stuff basically, or the the stuff between that. And the infrastructure, so databases and things like that, are like 10 to 20 years. In general, it's not always the case, but if you look at what happened in the front end or UI in the last years versus in databases, it's quite a big difference. Okay, so Perl ages, it's old, okay, but that's not our main problem. Our main problem actually is Foswiki. Foswiki is a framework or wiki software that's open source. It's made for on-premise, so it's a file-based storage system. It doesn't have a database. It uses Perl and JavaScript, and the main thing is it's highly customizable. So it has a custom markup language. It's customizable with plugins. And Foswiki is actually how Wiki started, like how we started as a startup. It was a full startup mentality, like make it happen, ship it to the customer, learning by doing. And it was not so much software engineering expertise, not because we didn't care, but because, well, we were mostly people fresh from university, so there was not a lot of expertise in the team. So we forked Foswiki, or my older colleagues forked Foswiki, and customized the hell out of it because we needed missing use cases to, yeah, ship it to the customer to get more clients. And this all makes the perfect storm for legacy code because this means that our software is not that controllable anymore. So basically, every time you go into the core Postwiki stuff, legacy stuff, yeah, you feel like this cat falling in a bathtub and think like, okay, where's the exit? How can I get out of here again, please? The old code is often spaghetti code. It has a low modularity. There's a lot of black magic happening. So if you change one line, you don't know what else is happening. There are very few, only few tests. And so this all means it's hard to read, harder to understand. If you wasn't there when it happened, you don't know what to do. And this all basically means we have no control. So we don't know if you change something in old code, if the feature will still work afterwards when we ship it to the customer. Because due to this high customization and also a lot of possible customizations the client could do themselves, we don't know what happens if our theory code meets reality. So that's where we were in the beginning of 2022, 2023, by the end of 2022. And so what now or what then? Better. That's when we started with Elixir and started to think about how to clean up this big ball of mud, which is called in software engineering. So the first start is, well, often the first instinct is to say, well, let's just start from scratch, start from zero. But the problem is we still need the features, we still need the clients. We can't go into I don't know, into the cellar and program away for 3 years and then come back and say, it's new now, it's better now, because customers won't wait that long. So the first thing is to appreciate your legacy. We built this, it made us who we are in a sense. So like it's the core of Model Aachen, and we still need the software to work. But it doesn't mean we can't change it and make it better. So the next thing, once you figured out that, okay, starting afresh isn't quite that possible with that large a project, is that you need a vision. So for us, that's meant domain-driven design. So we want to take our spaghetti code and cut it into contexts. So we have feature 1 in context D, we have feature 2 in context B, and basically have a feature from that, it's as modular as possible and as independent as possible from the other features. So this is when we started to think about, well, if we're gonna do all that stuff, can't we also improve our language, our software habitat, basically? And we decided that we wanted to move to Elixir. We made a comparison between Elixir and F#. So like we knew we wanted to go to a functional programming language. And yeah, we did some research, and in the end, Elixir won just because the habitat felt nicer. Like you Google something for Elixir and you land on Elixir pages in a nice forum, everyone is cool, everyone is nice. And with F sharp, it was often that we ended up on C sharp pages where you had to figure out if it's still applicable to F sharp or not. So that was one of our main reasons. And some of us had played around with Elixir and found it good. So, and also with F sharp and found Elixir better. So that's why we decided to go to Elixir. Our first, or currently our goal is to have our move our backend to Elixir. So we want to the backend database. In the long run, maybe we want to use live view as well and go for the Elixir frontend as well. But for now, we wanted to keep the scope smaller. Because, yeah, as we said, we still need to keep building our features and deliver value to our customers, and doing everything at once is a bit difficult. So at the beginning of 2023, we had an opportunity. We, with our shaper method, we decided to work on a certain feature, and that was outdated, that already existed. It was outdated in Foswiki and Perl. It was really core Foswiki functionality, but it needed WebSockets. It didn't have WebSockets. And it needed to be redone. So also, it didn't need a lot of data. So we knew we just had to move the logic and really don't do much with the database, with the tables and with the schemas. So it was a good opportunity to try out to go to Elixir. We always estimate between 2 and 6 weeks to get features finished, and we were pretty sure that we could do this. Okay, let's take 2 weeks to try this way and see how far we come. And if it's not working, we can go back and do this one. But we can try. And that's what we did. So first, we wanted to build a walking skeleton. So the goal was to get Elixir into production, which means we have a vertical slice all the way through from the front end talking to the Elixir backend, talking to the database and back, without anybody noticing that there's something additional happening. Since we work with Kubernetes, we had to do a lot of stuff with the infrastructure and added Elixir ports and stuff like that. But this talk is not about that part. It's more about the software part. But we can talk about that one too. So yeah, we wanted to build a skeleton without the user noticing. So what does this mean? What does the user notice? Well, it means seamless UI. So the user shouldn't feel a difference, maybe a bit faster, but nothing negative. We need extra good session handling because the user is not supposed to have to log in again. So it's not like KubeWiki 2.0 where you have to log in again if you switch between the features. And data consistency. We can't afford to lose data. Like if the user is looking for his process and it's gone, that's not good. So these were our three, goals or benchmarks to reach for the skeleton work. And seamless UI, done. We're working in Vue. So as long as we only do Elixir in the backend, easy. Also, we already connected a Vue with a REST API with Perl, so we did the same for Elixir as well. Next part, seamless session. So we wanted to avoid the additional login, and with this meant we had to build up on the existing session store. This is in Foswiki and in the database, basically, the whole way in Perl. And the authentication uses the existing Foswiki session. Like we have a Foswiki session that we built up, and we wanted to use that as well and use the cookie that's built, that's stored in the browser. And for authorization, we use role-based access control. So we had to make sure to make these roles available in Elixir as well. And our solution for that was to allow the communication between Perl and Elixir. So we wrote a custom session plug. I don't know if you've worked with plugs in Elixir, but if you did, you know, or like in Phoenix, but if you did, you know, you can override the default session plug with your customization version. And basically meant that our front end sent the cookie to the Elixir backend, and the session plug went over to Perl and was like, is this valid? And the Perl session store did what it did before, validated the cookie, loaded the roles and the tenant and the user ID, and gave it back. So that's the second part done. We have another part of our skeleton. It does sound a bit easier than it was. Like were tricky parts, definitely, especially moving everything to Elixir after a while, which we've done by now. But that's how we started. Next part, data consistency. So our data needs to be consistent. We have one database and then multi-tenancy. So every tenant has their own tables, so they don't use each other's data on accident. So we need schemas. And we needed to make the existing data tables available for usage in production as well as in testing. And as we've said, or as I've said, we work with CI/CD, so you always have to think about what you change and if it's backwards compatible or not. If you work with CI/CD, you know the pain of migration sometimes. Our solution, migrations. We already had migrations in Perl anyway, so we knew what we were doing because, of course, we have changed my schemas before. We use the hex or the library triplex for multi-tenancy, which is basically Ecto plus multi-tenancy. We use still our Postgres schemas, and we had to add provisioning and deprovisioning to Elixir. So if we create a new client, this has to work for Elixir as well. This was some of the more tricky work to get this into the right to make it in the right way. Because if you do Perl first, then skip, and then the Elixir, and then Perl again, was easy to mix up. In the end, we basically have migrations for live or for production and tenant migrations. So migrations are for the public schema, which is used for example for the event queue, and tenant migrations is for each tenant. And then we have test migrations, which just makes our life with CI easier because it means we can put migrations in there that don't run yet on production, which allows us to change things easier because we just have to migrate our local system back and forth and not everybody on the production. And then the big part, which also goes for Perl as well, but migrations need to be idempotent. So we will have to be able to run them again and again without them breaking stuff. And we always have to implement up and down. In Perl, there was no real down, at least not if you didn't do it on purpose. So this is something Elixir is, better at, basically. That's something we have to keep in mind. But with that, next part, we found an arm. That's the schema part. The other part is data, because our data needs to be idempotent as well, no matter from which page you come. Here's an example for, but it's yeah, we basically added a column that didn't exist beforehand and then filled it with the right data. But you don't have to understand it now. Yeah, data migrations also need to be idempotent, and they also have to be implemented for up and down. At this point in time, when in doubt, we write it in Perl. Like now, 2 months, 3 months further, we're starting to work on it and how to run Perl Elixir migrations in the testing, testing environment, but not in the production environment. But for now, it's if in doubt, write it in Perl. Our tooling is there, and especially back in 2023, it was write it in Perl. We know what we're doing there, but it works, and we could do the most important stuff. So another unfound. Well, then I want to show you a bit of under the hood. Like we have, okay, the user doesn't notice, but what's with us in the backend? How do we communicate between these contexts without ending up with this big ball of spaghetti code again, or with this big ball of coupling again? Like we want to avoid coupling and we want to have high modularity. Again, in domain-driven design, this is built in if you do it right, but we had to think about how to do it, especially with contexts now being some in Perl and some in Elixir, where you couldn't just make an exception. And also always making synchronous call from Perl to Elixir and back, or the other way around, takes a lot of time, and it's still a website, so our users still expect to, well, it not take too long. That's where events come in. I don't know if you know event sourcing. Basically, you work with events. So you say, context A says, I've done this, and context F looks for the event and then reacts to it if needed, or if they need it, which means you have eventually consistent data, but it's not synchronous. It's asynchronous, so you can be faster. This is what we had when we started with Elixir. Like we have service one, which listens to an event handler. Event handler handles the events that are written into the database. Pretty easy. Now we have the service two and want to react to this event that service one creates. No, sorry, that's the wrong one. Want to add an event as well, where we did the ugly but quick version and just persisted it in the same database. Like ignore O-Bahn, ignore everything, just take the same queue, same existing tooling and put it into the database and wait for the event queue to work it. Not nice. By now we have O-Bahn, so, but yeah, that took a while. That's the part for the publishing. Now the other part that I started to talk about already, the event listener. Now we have service 3 that wants to listen to an event that happened here, that happens in Perl context. What do? We added a trigger in the event handler that if the event handler, like we add to, like if this is for Elixir basically, also trigger the listener over there. Which is the other part. Again, in the first place, not ugly, especially if you start with more features over on Elixir's side, and especially core features on Elixir's side, we started to play a lot of ping pong. So we got to the point where we said, well, we need OBARD now. We want to have our own Elixir event queue. This is again where we started. So if I've counted correctly, we have all the parts now. Like we have a torso, we have 2 arms, we have a head, we have 2 legs. So is it viable? Yes, yes, it was viable. Like we managed to integrate Elixir as far as we could in 2 weeks, and then we were confident enough that we could finish the feature in the whole 6 weeks, and we did. UI was there, session handling was there, consistency was there, and the feature was there as well. As we said, feature was pretty small, so we did that in about, I think, 2 weeks or 1 week. It works. Is it pretty? No. Every time we now look at this feature code, we are like, what were we thinking? But it worked. We got it started. The time invest at that point was like 2.5 persons for 30 days, for a month. It was 2 software engineers, and the half person is one of our DevOps people who we had to, who was very involved in getting the Kubernetes cluster and everything to run. So yeah, success. It worked. And now, what if you have a feature that's not completely well doable in 2 weeks or in 6 weeks? Like what if it's bigger? How do we get this big ball of wool of mud over? Yeah, where can we shape it? I want to show you an example. For us it's attachments. It's like the biggest example not anymore, but the biggest example, one of the biggest example we did. And that took us a long time, but in the end it worked. So attachments basically means you have a page where your process is written on, and this process can have an attachment where you say like, I don't know, fill out this PDF, or here's more information on this PowerPoint or something. So just an attachment as you would imagine in any other software. But we worked with the strangler fig pattern for that. The main idea of the strangler fig pattern is, I don't know if you know the strangler fig in real life, but it's a plant that basically plants itself into a tree and then starts to grow on that tree using the resources of the tree. So first you have the old part, then your feature grows, your old feature dies. Like in the real life nature, the strangler fig uses more and more resources that the tree would need. So yeah, it slowly dies, and in the end, you only have the strangler fig left. Not that nice, but very good in software engineering. So the first part, what did we have? We have a page with an attachment, in our page when it loads goes to the attachment service and says, do I have attachment? Or I know I have an attachment with an ID, please give it to me. And then we save and load it from the metadata and also read and write from the file storage. So basically, when was it uploaded, who uploaded it, stuff like that. But also, load the actual file from the storage. The first thing we did, like the first part, was with another feature actually that was not for the full attachments, but for profile pictures. So if you're a user, you were supposed to be able to upload picture of you. So yeah, because it's nice to have a picture of you in your profile. So basically we shaped this thing to only contain a new attachment service that had the minimal stuff that was needed for a profile picture, which was save and load the picture metadata, which was like the name of the user for whom the picture is, and the size. And then read and write the file of the picture to the file storage that was our first step. Then, of course, we kept the profile pictures, but it's not important for the rest. We started reading the info. So we had the attachment servers. We knew that reading and writing the metadata and the file worked on Elixir part. So we extended that to work for all our MIME types. And then we added in the attachment service, we added a call, a synchronous call to the attachment service on Elixir part to say, give me the info. The saving, we still did on the first. Then we added the writing as well to work over Elixir. So by then we could remove with these parts like the reading and the saving, like this connection from Perl to the database and to the file storage from our code, which was quite a lot of code we could delete. And then we started to reroute the front end so that we started to edit in the REST endpoint to also go over Elixir and ask Elixir for the attachment instead of the attachment servers, which then meant we could remove the rest of the attachment service and one of the big features in Foswiki. Because this was core Foswiki, it was a lot pretty tricky to extract it and get it out of there and into Elixir without the user noticing anything. I think we took about three-quarter of a year, but there was a lot of other stuff going on. Like we also moved to S3 in this time, so it wasn't one straightforward way. Yeah, but that's it. This way we got rid for this feature of Perl, and that's what we aim to do with every other feature as well. So we always move bit by bit by bit and see how well we can move. So the main challenge of this is to find the smallest part you can move without breaking stuff. That's like the main challenge. But it's also fun if it works. So yeah. So where does it leave us? Where are we now? Well, if you look at our code 2 years later, we still have a lot of lines in Perl, but we also added continuously a lot of lines in Elixir. And you really have to say, every time we add a feature in Elixir, it's so much smaller, like code line wise, than in Perl. That's definitely one big thing. And also we're continually, we're not as fast as we thought we would be in the first place. But also, as I've already mentioned, we're growing quite a lot. We're focusing a lot of new features or making features better for our customers and shipping value. So it's not like reducing Perl is our main focus. It's more like continuous thing we're doing. And there are always features like if you look at this Perl from here to there, this is where the attachments moved. And this is quite a big jump. And we're expecting to see more and more jumps of these when we tackle the big features that are still waiting. So our ongoing challenges are always this new features versus modernization that you always have in a company. Like, do we listen to sales? Do we listen to the developers? Where do we put our energy? And the other big thing is figuring out the functionality of legacy features. Like we have some features which work as the customer wants them, but if you ask people what they want, they don't really know. And we are not always 100% sure what all the functionality means, because since it was highly customizable, or is in some parts still highly customizable, you don't always know what the customer actually did with that feature. So sometimes we take away stuff and someone writes to our support like, I was using that. And then we always have to figure out how to, not lose customers over this. So again, find focus, write new features in Elixir, and move things whenever possible. So if we need 1 day extra to move this thing to Elixir, we will do it. If we need 3 days extra, we will probably do it, a bit depending on the time, but it's basically every time we can, we move. So where does it leave us? What can you take home from this? First of all, as I've started in the beginning, incremental steps all the way. This also goes for legacy code. Start small, figure out a guiding star, like where you want to go in the end, where you want to be. Like if you want to do domain-driven design, if you want to do event sourcing or things like that. These are big decisions. But once you know you want to go there, then go bit by bit. This is one of my favorite comics. It's yeah. For me, it encompasses the working with legacy code, like getting a bit part out of it and making it nice, making it workable. The other stuff is enable yourself, and also especially yourself as a software developer in your software team. Enable yourself to move fast, like to have good test coverage, at least for the feature you're working on right now. Go for early feedback so you can quickly gather feedback from your customers, of your clients, or just your internal customers. And look that you can how you can add value with small features, but also how you can add value by having a big feature start small. And there's always this discussion between business value and versus tech debt. I think this is one of the main things we need to accept as software developers. It's always the same discussion, but with the steps, and like if you can go fast as a software team, you can also lead this discussion and have a good balance between the two. And also every bit counts. Like everything you move to, that's more controllable now is a good thing. So every step, baby steps. I've also brought some recommended literature. So first of all, working effectively with legacy code is like a classic. Refactoring is also like a classic. And one of my favorite books because it goes a lot into how legacy actually happens in real life. Kill It With Fire by Marianne Bellotti. I can highly recommend it. It's very enjoyable to read. And that's it. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, now is the time. And you can find me off LinkedIn, on LinkedIn if you want. I think the link is also in the YouTube. But I will also in the Discord, so just ask me what you want. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anita. Thank you very much. Love your presentation. I already got one question.
Thank you.
I already got one question in the chat. You said that you knew that you wanted to use functional language even before choosing Elixir. What made you so sure about going functional?
Well, we started in Perl with object-oriented programming, and we, again and again figured out that we had problems with, I don't know the English word right now, sorry, like stuff happening that you didn't intend. And so we already went more to functional programming in Perl.
Mm.
So, and we were happy with that and noted that we had less, it was more controllable in the end, I think. It was easier to have modular. I really don't know the English word right now. I'm sorry. Nebenläufigkeit.
Yeah. I think that we understood and the audience understood also. Next question.
So
Yep. Next question.
it,
If you knew when you started, what?
you change a class, some object.
Hmm?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, sure.
My video stopped.
Yeah, I'll shoot the next question. Would you
Yeah.
have done anything differently today with the competence, with the knowledge
Mm,
you have today, doing the same journey?
good question. I think we would have a more realistic approach to the time we need for all of this.
Hmm?
Like we thought we would be maybe done by now, not really, but farther than we are.
Yeah, okay.
So in retrospect, we would have used other features, I think, but the main points still stand. Like the approach in itself is still sound.
Yeah. Okay. Another question. Did you like Pearl?
It has some good parts,
Hmm?
but I prefer Elixir so much. Like Elixir for me is the easiest language I ever gotten into,
Hmm?
and I've met a few languages by now. Um, Perl is fine if you use it the right way, but it's so easy to overcomplicate it and like have a regex this small do what so much. This is on the one hand cool, and on the other hand so easy to get out of control.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. Um, Next question. Your favorite feature in Elixir?
Uh, that we have now, or in the language Elixir in
That's a good
general.
question. We don't know. We just got a question, so go for what you have now then.
Well, in Elixir itself, it's definitely pattern matching.
Hmm?
Like I love having 5 of the same functions, having the business logic in the guard or some, or in the signature of the method. It's so nice to read afterwards. Um, and for our favorite, or my favorite feature in our software,
Hmm?
I think it's still the attachments, because it was really a lot to do, and I did or participate in a lot of that.
Hmm?
And it was cool to make it nice and see how far we got.
Cool. If not Elixir, what other functional language would you have picked? Would you have gone for F sharp or maybe something completely?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, interesting. Um, what has been the advantages of using Elixir over Perl? I think you've answered that a bit, but maybe you can elaborate a bit more.
Yeah, yeah. The functional programming part is the one
Hmm?
thing. Like it's also easier to get into it. Like we have apprentices in our company, and they find Elixir so much easier than Perl to get
Interesting.
started with, especially as a first language.
Yeah.
And then we also have, like the best example is we have one front end engineer. Like he started as a front end engineer and then went full stack because he liked Elixir.
Mm.
And I don't think that would have happened with Perl
No.
at all. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
And I also like the community part,
Mm.
definitely. Like in Perl, it's hard to find people to talk about this, and it's Elixir. It's at least online, it's easier.
Agree. Agree. It's a very engaging community around Elixir.
Yeah.
Um, were there any performance issues moving from Perl to Elixir, or any kind of performance related things?
Uh, our Perl, like it's Foswiki, right? It's not
Mm?
the Perl part that's the problem. It's the Foswiki part that's the
Mm?
problem. But it's so slow, or it was so slow already, because there's so much build up that's getting loaded again and again that doesn't
Mm.
have to be loaded,
Mm.
that everything in Elixir feels way faster.
It's nice.
So we found some issues. Yeah, but it's only, yeah. the usual stuff. Like
Mhm.
if you have a lot of calls, you run into issues.
Yep. Cool. That I was think you've answered everyone's question. Again, thank you very much, Anita, for joining us and presenting. I think this is a really nice presentation, just showing that you can go from like deciding to swap out a legacy language to a newer functional language. So thank you
Yeah.
very much. Yeah. So
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
yeah, thank you. And then thank you very much, everyone, for joining tonight for our two presentations. Now, in the end, we saw Anita's very nice presentation on how you can switch out an old Perl legacy code to a newer Elixir-based code. And with that, I would like to thank everyone also watching and also very engaging in the chat. Thank you very much for that. I know that the presenters love your engaging talks or your engaging questions in the chat. So thank you very much. And with that, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Bye for now.